Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Tony Yoka has been confirmed to fight for the European Union title on March the 5th in Nantes, France. He will be facing the former cruiserweight Joel Tambwe Djeko of Belgium. So this fight kind of is just what it is. There's a belt on the line. Clearly they want to keep Tony Yoka active. He can get that EU title, not to be confused with the European title, which is different, but EBU Boxing does administer both. So the European title, which Joe Joyce recently won, and the European Union title, which is currently vacant. So this is what Tony Yoka is going for. But this fight is, in my view, a bit of a mismatch. It's a case where a bit of activity keep Tony Yoka sort of warm. He's actually coming off a bit of an injury from that Christian Hammer fight, apparently hurt his hand. Don't know the extent of the injury. So I guess this is going to be an opportunity to get some rounds and gauge that, well, actually, I mean, this probably is going to end early. Let's not sort of mince words here. Joel Tambwe Djeko, former cruiserweight, currently has a record of 17 wins, 2 losses and 1 draw. But there's really not a huge amount on the record. And bearing in mind he fought at cruiserweight just 2 fights ago, Ricardo Schneiders. And Schneiders, you may recall, was the cruiserweight who was fed to Daniel Dubois and taken out in pretty brutal fashion early on in their fight. And Joel Tambwe Djeko went the distance with Schneiders. So that should give you a little bit of a barometer of where Djeko, his level, is really at. He actually was meant to face Danny Williams during the pandemic. There was going to be a $5 pay-per-view, and I was looking to get that because I really haven't seen too much of Djeko, but I wanted to get a bit of a sighter at him last year when he'd moved up to the heavyweight division, but that card never went ahead in the end. But now he gets a shot at Tony Yoka, probably going to be a career high payday, and if it's not, it's got to be awfully close, because when you look at the resume and go through on BoxRec, encourage you to do so, not a lot there. And Joel Tambwe Djeko, not much of a puncher as well. Only a 40% KO ratio. So Tony Yoka is going to go in there and he's going to pretty much have it all his own way. And I would be expecting, along the lines of what we saw against Dimitrenko, Mikhail Wallisch, that sort of level of guy. It's that sort of performance where Djeko might give it a go for a bit, but ultimately he's going to be outclassed, beaten up and taken out, and probably inside 3 rounds, possibly inside the first 2 rounds. This one is not going to go long. So I guess it's a case of, people might say, well, what's the point for Tony Yoka? And there's a little bit of that, but when you consider that his recent opposition, and especially compared to his peers, has been, night and day. He certainly has been facing good opposition. Christian Hammer is one of these guys that a lot of these other fighters in the heavyweight division would love to be facing. To get that opportunity against a really solid sort of gatekeeper who's at that about top 30 level. A lot of these guys are blowing out guys between the top 50 and top 100. Can't seem to get that next sort of step type fight. And given Yoka coming back from injury to some extent, I can understand that. There's some hardware here, so it can kind of justify it. But there is a question about, well, what next for Tony Yoka after this? Because we want to see him fighting in the United States, making the most of this top-ranked deal, which he inked before the pandemic, but really hasn't been able to take advantage of yet. Since the pandemic started, he's had fights against Johan Dorper, washed him in a round, and then took a decision against Christian Hammer. Pretty ugly fight at times, wasn't maybe the best advert for Tony Yoka, but when you step back in the context of, actually, Hammer's a really tricky and awkward fighter, he makes people look bad in there. Good win, very good win, and others would like to have that on their resume. So this is, passing time. It's coming back to the ring, bit of activity, a little bit of hardware. Just keep the sort of Tony Yoka sort of hype train sort of bubbling along. But hopefully we are going to see him in the United States at some point this year, because he can go there. He can get an exemption to come in to work, because he is a boxer. This is work for him. And I'd like to see him tossed in with a few guys that they do have in the top-ranked stable. There are some names they could pit him with. But we'll see, don't want to go in too much into this, but in terms of this event on March the 5th in Nantes, France, this is going to be, you can take it to the bank now. Tony Yoka to win and win by destruction. It's just a matter of how long before he stops Joel Tambwe Djeko. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.